May I now request Dr. A. Vadivukarasi to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Dr. Geeta. A great morning to all online. I'm full of joys of the spring in being asked to be the curtain raiser of today's session. Let me start with the words of William Shakespeare. Small cheer and great welcome makes a merry feast. Let me start by welcoming first our management, especially our Madam Secretary, Srimati Sumati Krishna Prasad. She's ever ready to step in our need and support us and lead us. I place on record my hearty welcome to you, Madam. Our Madam Principal, Mrs. S. Kalaiselvi, she is open-minded, and it is only her genuine efforts that has landed us and shaped us into what we are. A warm welcome to you, Madam. Our resource person, I have no words to describe her. Dr. Latha Nair, she's a rare combination of simplicity and magnificence. Actually, we got into her acquaintance during the IQAC webinar. And when our department, the Department of English of Sri GVG Visalakshi College, decided on organizing a national webinar, all of us unison echoed one name, Dr. Latha Nair. We are fascinated, Madam, by your scholastic ability, yet your unassuming attitude. You have captivated us, Madam. A bouquet of welcome to you, Madam. We eagerly look forward to delve deep into the fathoms of subaltern literature. I welcome the head of the Department of English, Dr. D. Sujata. She has been the source of all our energy. Her undivided attention, articulations, ever-welcoming attitude and positivity has breathed life into all our actions. A hearty welcome to you, Madam. I welcome all the fellow professors and even the retired Professor Madam had joined us today. I welcome you all with an open heart. You have all patted us behind our back and encouraged us to move forward. Thank you very much and a warm welcome to you all. I offer an effusive welcome to the professors and scholars online. I sincerely appreciate your overwhelming response, and it is your quest and your thirst for knowledge that has brought together all of us online. Welcome, friends. A special welcome is due to the team of professors of the Department of English of Sri GVG Visalakshi College for Women, who are all busy right now behind their screens, and without their support and determination, you would not have been here. This moment would not have been fruitful today. I offer a cordial welcome to all the technicians and the beautiful souls at home, at your home and my home, online and offline, who have been instrumental and supportive for all our efforts. Once again, I welcome one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vadivu, for your heartening welcome address.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, now I request Professor K. Satyapriya to introduce the speaker. Satya, are you online?
Yes, ma'am, yes. Am I audible?
Oh, yes, Satya, you're audible.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Yes. Good morning, everybody. I'm much delighted to introduce our renowned resource person, Dr. R. Latha Nair, Associate Professor of English, St. Teresa's College, Kochi, Kerala. She has rich and resounding academic expertise and experience, chairing esteemed positions at various forums and deliberations. Her areas of specialization are Indian writing and English, linguistics and applied language studies, cultural studies, and critical and literary theories, and so on. She held several laudable positions. She served as a member of the steering committee for the third cycle and was responsible for drafting the third cycle report, which enabled the college to secure the commendable score of 3.4 CGPA. She contributed her service in the National Assessment and Accreditation of the college from 1999. She is also a member in IQAC. She was nominated to the Governing Council of the college in 2014. She facilitated the implementation of Learning Management System LMS. She also responsible for the implementation of the State of the Art Media Lab in 2018. She served as the NAC coordinator for the 4th cycle accreditation. She holds several important positions such as Dean of Faculty, General Course Director in 2011, Course Coordinator for UGC-sponsored Innovative Program for Undergraduates, Book Review Editor of International Journal Tertiary Journal of English Studies 2019, Course Coordinator of PhD coursework, Executive Committee Member of Alumni British Scholars, Member Inspection Team Commission of Mahatma Gandhi University in 2011, Member Monitoring Committee for PhD Diploma CALT, that is Computer Assisted Language Teaching in 2011 by Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi, Kerala, and a member in esteemed Tertiary Research and Consultancy Cell. She has numerous collaboration with following universities: London Metropolitan University, with the Richmond University, the American International University, the State Kansas University US, Deakin University Australia, University of West Scotland and Accra in UK for facilitating research initiatives. Her major contribution to literary society is that she established the Gunn Center for Science Fiction Studies, affiliated to the State Kansas University, to promote creative writing and science fiction. She's also coordinated the first accredited summer exchange program for the college with the Richmond University and the American International University, and so on. Such an eminent person is here to share her intellectual insights on subaltern literature. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Satya ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Lata ma'am, we are so excited to hear you. Ma'am, the field is yours.
Hi, everyone. And I'm overwhelmed personally, whether I deserve all these compliments. I should tell you, these were all a part of the academic work that I did. And I'm humbled that by the grace of that universal power that placed me in this path. So I feel so happy to be with you all today morning. And there is something very special about this happiness, in the sense, this is just a wonderful opportunity that you did not ask me to speak about NAC accreditation process, So I'm so happy that finally I got back to situate myself in literature. So thank you so much, Sujata and her team, for giving me an opportunity to share whatever little knowledge that I have about subaltern studies. So let us begin without wasting any time. Now, my talk has 3 sections. Since the title is Subaltern Studies, I thought this may be common information for all those who have researched, is doing research or is familiar with subaltern studies. But my task is to just give you a history of subaltern studies and then narrow it down to literature. It's not possible to discuss the huge volume of literature that is there under subaltern studies, but I would touch upon some seminal works and then connect it to the present situation. So, and I have some visual things for you to locate you properly in subaltern studies. Maybe these visuals might be of use for you. So I begin here with a short history of subaltern studies. And one thing that we all know is the moment that word comes to you about subaltern, the word subaltern, you associate it with Gayatri's Vivek. But subaltern studies began its impressive career in England at the end of 1970s, when conversations on subaltern themes among a small group of English and Indian historians led to a proposal to launch a new journal in India. So Gayatri Spivak, in one of her keynote addresses, she has said she had not read Gramsci at that point of time, but she was about to submit a paper, Can the Subaltern Speak? And it was at that time, it was titled differently, and it was at that time she tumbled upon Ranajit Guha. And when she read that article, she went back to her writing or that text and gave this title, Can the Subaltern Speak? So it is this man, Ranajit Guha, who created the Guha effect across the globe. And when an Oxford University Press in New Delhi agreed to publish 3 volumes of essays called Subaltern Studies, Writings on Southeast History and Society. And much later, when Guha retired in 1989, there was this huge volumes that they have produced, almost 47 essays in 6 Subaltern Studies volumes, and they decided to publish a book. So that happened in 1988, when they selected the title as Selected Subaltern Studies, and the title was given, and it was published by Oxford University Press in New York and Oxford, and it was edited jointly by Ranajit Guha and Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak. And I should tell you, I think you might be able to guess who wrote the preface or the foreword, and that was written by none other than Edward Said. And this was the beginning of the Subaltern Studies group. And Ranajit Guha has said these academicians were not very well known at that point of time. They also belonged to the marginal. So Burton Steen, who was very much passionate about Indian history, and his book, History of India, which actually is an updated narrative of the development of Indian society, culture, and politics, actually deals from 7000 BC to the present. So when he saw this, and actually the impact of this book, Spivak herself has said it created an earthquake. It was like an earthquake. Its repercussions were felt across the globe. And Burton Steen, said that we are starting a decade of historical efflorescence in South Asian studies, which was very true. And in the 1990s, Subaltern studies became a hot topic in academic circles on several continents. And I still remember when we were at the IFLU, as I was a research scholar, we were at the campus in the present IFLU. You know, the campus was buzzing with this icon, you know, Gayatri Spivak. I don't think Ranajit Guha was that much popular, but it was almost like a lightning rod, a hitching post, or a gold mine. And scholars especially, they thought it was a fortress, which made it very attractive was the interdisciplinarity. So they thought that, you know, it could be connected with all disciplines, from history to political science, anthropology, sociology, literary criticism, and cultural studies. So another singularity or distinctiveness of this whole discipline was that it could interpret subalternity contextually. I would define subaltern and subalternity later, after sharing with you this history of how subaltern studies came into being, and how look at how the subject of subalternity has changed over the years. And my goal at the moment is not to formulate a critique or to assess the merits and demerits, but to unravel the inner history to inform your reading and discussion. And then there is one notable critic which I cannot but mention, that is Peter Grant. And he argues, for instance, that in India especially, subaltern studies is always read against liberalism, Marxism and religious fascism, which is, and whereas in US, that I myself have felt that, you know, in US, its principal novelty is its ability to represent India by being read into the ideologies of difference and otherness. These are the differential space that it created. And again, Guha and Spivak insisted upon this differential, or highlighted this differential space, which we will take up later. So though globalization circulates texts and ideas around the world, it nonetheless divides the reading environments that we all know. You know, you stand divided. When you are in the reading environment, it is very divisive, like the human being himself. In the US, readers are, this is the truth, readers are generally encouraged to think about culture in essentialist terms. That is, what I mean is, in ethnographic present, that is to see colonialism, nationalism as a cultural phenomena, and at times, sometimes, to disdain Marxism, maybe covertly, and to distance academic work from partisan politics. That is a separation that they think will bolster academic credibility. I leave it to you to debate about. This is just a thought, and you can think differently and debate upon. So now I should tell you, like the pandemic that we have, that the pandemic has created so many critical discourses. I think the Great World War provoked popular accounts of the subaltern life in published memoirs, that's little narratives, not the grand narratives, but the little narratives like memoirs, diaries, which happened soon after the Russian Revolution. And at that point, one name that I would bring in is Gramsci. I purposefully did not mention him. Gramsci was not popular and not very influential among the British or the US scholars, if I remember. He had just started to weave ideas about subaltern identities, subaltern identity into the theories of class struggle. This is an important point. And Gramsci, as I said, he was unknown, and there was one man who made him very popular. I hope you will be able to guess who that was. That was none other than Raymond Williams. You know, Culture and Society, I hope you would associate with. And Raymond Williams promoted his theory in 1977, well after translations of the Modern Prince, and this is the book that was more important, the Prison Notebooks, that which was published in 1966. So by 1982, Gramsci's ideas became very popular. And Gramsci, as we all know, was a communist, and I think scholars outside or opposed to communist parties, even to Marxism, have embraced his thoughts, embraced his English books, as well as those of Frankfurt School. I'm not going to go detail because my purpose is to introduce literature as well. So, but anyway, I thought I would just briefly introduce the history. So in 1976, there was this historian, that is Eric Stokes, which you cannot put him on the hold, announced, this is a very important point, that is, from the elite, the whole focus shifted to the peasant or the subaltern or the unrepresented. So he said, now it is the return of the peasant to colonial history. So, and you can see that the whole focus, suddenly there was an interest that was shown by local people or academicians to promote local research. And there was this one thing that captured attention, and that was insurgency. I'm sure that you know about that term, insurgency. And this insurgency attracted special attention, especially in India. 1857, you know, our first battle of independence. In the centenary of 1857, when we were celebrating 1857, had simulated or stimulated new histories of rebellion. rebellion, and some directly inspired by rebels like Kottabaman Naikar. You will remember that. And then also Birsa Munda. I can't but mention Birsa Munda, who who is immortalized by none other than Mahashweta Devi in her Arinyakar, the Rights of the Forest. So, and even now in Ranchi, there is a statue of Birsa Munda, who died at the age of 25, succumbing and fiercely putting up a struggle against the British. And his statue was placed at the center of Ranchi with shackles. And when Mahashweta Devi went back to Ranchi to organize the bonded laborers against the state, she called some of them and asked, why are you putting him in shackles again? Why are you putting him in shackles again? We have gained our independence. And that is why I feel, as long as this nation is there, as long as this causes or these sufferings of the unrepresented remain, Mahashweta Devi's spirit would continue to be with us in spirit. So this is exactly what the turn, and there was this sudden interest in romantic heroism attached to old rebel histories. And in addition, the 60s and 70s raised concern about revolution in the present. And in this context, more regional scholars took up studies of insurrection. And two of them who were very famous were N.G. Ranga, but I think the academia, I don't know whether they have been given that much of importance. N.G. Ranga, L. Nadarajan, who were pioneers in this field decades before, and elements of its intellectual history go back to the 20s, if I'm correct, when early Indian studies of Indian rebels sought to recuperate the insurgent mentalities. So it was actually the indigenous theories of present revolt that had emerged in 30s among the communists. Communism, I don't have time to go to the communism or communist history in India, and the Kisan Sabha. You will hope all of you remember that in the 60s, the academic study of insurrection came into being, and it actually had set up its roots very powerfully. So what I'm saying is, indigenous theories or the stories, there was a lot of research, there were scholars studying on that. I will give you 3 examples. That is, one is Hamza Alavi, who theorized peasant revolution. Stephen Fuchs, who explored the tribal messianism. It is tribal messianism. So that is why I'm bringing this particular research, I'm mentioning this especially. And then J.C. Jha, who studied cold rebellions, and Muinuddin Ahmad Khan, who studied early Farah-Idi rebels in Bengal. So I'm telling you all this in order to show how there was a bottoms-up struggle, like from the elite who was leading the revolt against British, there was this turn to focus on the unheard voices, those who were not had representations in a freedom struggle or the fight against British. So then there was Raghavaiya's work on tribal revolts, and Ghanshyam's early studies of Gujarat, and a flurry of work on Mapla revolt from my place, Kerala, and Kathleen Gao and Hari Sharma's path-breaking work on imperialism and revolution in South Asia. That is, if you research that, then all the stories would be, I think you will get an idea about what is the essence of this peasant revolt. Why are we placing it in the subaltern studies? So on both questions, I think, there was debates that raged early in the days. When you look at globally, there is the Iranian Revolution, when Mujahideens were fighting against Soviets in Afghanistan. And at that point of time, there was some conflicts that were raging. And it was at precisely at this time, Gramsci, Habermas, and Foucault was becoming very popular, and they started their influence among the English readers, in maybe English writers or globally. So, and then there was a fight that was going on between the American historians on one side and Cambridge people on the other side. And Americans criticized the inattention of Cambridgians to Indian culture at a time when a cultural school, in inverted commas, of Indian history was developing around Bernard S. Cohn at University of Chicago. So historians themselves were dividing. This is very important when you look at subaltern studies. Historians themselves were actually divided along schisms in social history, social theory into opposing schools, separated society on one side, culture from state institutions and political economy. So what subaltern studies did was they dramatized the entire division. So, and one book that I need to mention here is Benedict Anderson's book, which was published, especially the title was so catchy, and then it was published in 1983, Imagine Communities, Reflections on the Origin and Spread of Nationalism, and what was the peculiarity of this book? When most of the critics who have written about this book say that commonality that surfaces or their inference points out to the fact that this abandoned class struggle, class analysis, not struggles, but not do a class analysis. But what did it do? It ignored one more thing, and that was state politics. It argued something else was different. It was cultural forces which produced national identity and passion. So this was the kind of a change, a dynamic change that you witness when you look at the history of subaltern studies. And by 1983, scholars were writing two kinds of national history. One, a people's history filled with native culture and popular insurgency. The other, usual history as a grand narrative, official history filled with elites and political parties. And nations and states where what you can see is nations were separating like oil and water. That is your takeaway for this. So were culture and political economy. So this was which was happening. A new kind of nationality was coalescing in a separate domain of popular experience. I stress that point, popular experience, which was becoming increasingly isolated from state institutions and national elites who were controlling everything. So it is exactly at this point Ranajit Guha announced in 1982. That was a kind of a statement that he made, the politics of people. That is where the whole focus should be on. The politics of people form an autonomous domain. So this is very important when you discuss subaltern studies. And I need to bring in one more person here. That is in 1966. Just imagine, Barrington Moore had expanded. Why is it that the revolutions are not possible in India, in British India? Because we are conditioned to be pacifists, because we have absorbed like a blotting paper the wisdom of Indology, and social theory that India's caste culture, that is indoctrinated in us, and the villages remain very self-contained, and this is which makes revolution possible. That was what he said, Barrington Moore. And bolstering this argument, Louis Dumont, and his book, now we know about Agamben's Homo Sacer, but here was another writer who published this particular book, that is Homo Hierarchicus. The caste system, it was, just imagine, it was published in 1966. The caste system, those who are dealing with caste system, I think it is a must read. The caste system and its implications, it was published in English in 1966, presented a comprehensive model of Indian civilization based on logic of caste. And in this perspective, India's indigenous culture can sustain a diverse, fragmented electoral democracy, but all insurgency, according to him, was self-limiting. And class, according to him, class conflict, especially class conflict, could never engender, that is the line, class conflict could never engender revolutionary class solidarity. This was something which I think we have to underline. It can never engender revolutionary class solidarity. But there was immediately a response to that, and in fierce, it was not a very passive kind of resistance, but fierce opposition to this line of argument, which was carried on by, I would mention, of course, Hamza Alavi, A.R. Desai, Kathleen Gao, and others, who asserted, this is very important again, the theories of caste are ruling class ideology, which is very true. And high caste elites had always needed coercive power to keep low caste in their positions, especially not only low caste, peasants, workers, and tribal groups in their own specified places and pre-allotted spaces. And elite needed these states to suppress revolution. So what I'm telling you is national politics have always included, this is not which has happened now, but national politics had always included both popular insurgency and elite conservatism struggling against one another. They have to struggle against one another, producing conflict-ridden political movements and state regimes. So what I'm saying is, see, this is which actually was in the background. And there was one more person whose work actually announced a broad move away from studies of revolution into the analysis of localized personal resistance to the power of elites and states. And this was the book that carried this statement, and that was titled as Weapons of the Weak, Everyday Forms of Peasant Resistance by James C. Scott. And this was published in 1986. So actually, and when all these thoughts or intellectual ruptures started happening, finally, Eric Hobsbawm announced, I think I don't have to introduce him, Eric Hobsbawm in 1986 made a statement or announced that the age of extremes had come to an end. Age of extremes have come to an end. And the 90s, he said, the citizens are actually trying to fight the global fog. Global fog, which we are also fighting now, global fog that surrounded them into the third millennium. And that an era of history has ended. So this is exactly the background of subaltern studies. And I should tell you the history of Indian nationalism, and there is Partha Chatterjee, who is the founding member, one of the founding members of the subaltern studies. He also said these ideas were fundamental in which led to the revisioning of history that was happening in India, and women were also not represented. So there were many people who those who were not represented were given a position. There was a revisioning of history, revisioning of cultural history that was taking place simultaneously. Now, I'm coming back to the main points. That is, the centrality of the dominant group, according to him, is achieved through the denial and exclusion of another group. This is, I think we all know about that. And the most important thing is that mimetic and political forms are thus denied to the subalterns. And then, of course, we have to mention Homi Bhabha in his essay, Unsatisfied, Notes on Vernacular Cosmopolitanism. This is also very important text in which he emphasizes the importance of social power relation, which has to be there when you are looking at subaltern studies. And the oppressed minority is very much essential to the self-definition of the majority. So they have to have the other to define their dominance. So Gramsci, and I forgot to tell you that it was Gramsci who introduced that term, Satirino, was used to refer to the Italian peasants. I would also take a break and tell you that there was this Emacchio, a very popular peasant song, which was now, I think the youngsters might know about it. And that song, I was fascinated when the same song was translated into Hindi, and that was used when there was a strike that was against the bill. And most of them were singing that song. I think I would, I can't remember the title of the song, but that was very popular. And so it was a peasant song actually, and that has now become very popular, a song as a song of protest. So this is exactly, so this is this continues, and conflict is ingrained in the system between the dominant and the subaltern. That is always going to be there. And Partha Chatterjee goes on to say, especially in his book Caste and Consciousness, in his essay Caste and Consciousness, he says that the subaltern has immersed their life in their age-old history and traditional beliefs of elites. So it is very difficult to, change that psychological mindset. And subalternity is often an intersecting process between race, gender, and class. And the representation is another word that is very important in subaltern studies. So those who are interested in deconstruction or with the Derrida, you can also connect with Derrida. And I think the book is the Truth in Painting, that is written. I think that is which Derrida that focuses or points out conceptual possibilities of representation. So that is why I said this field, especially subaltern studies, is interdisciplinary. It is such a dynamic field. I hope you are not bored. And now I'm coming back to the second part of my presentation, and that is introducing the subaltern. So this is, as we know, is a much mangled word, and it is used across art, literature, cinema, film, media. So we have to think whether it is a position, is it about women, is it about gender, is it about a subject position without any closures. So let us look at each one, and you would definitely would say that I think one thing that I would definitely say is it definitely is about the subject position, those people who do not have any access to social mobility. And the word subaltern, this is one thing that I'm bringing in. It is, I think Spivak also insists on this. That is, I have myself debated on this, but it's very difficult to get a conclusive answer on this. And that she says, the word subaltern and the idea of the popular do not inhabit the same space. So subaltern is maybe, as we all feel, is an idea of representation or how one gets represented. It is about a position that one is given, or a position that one assumes in society, but definitely it has got a strict understanding of class. And Spivak goes on to say that nobody can say I'm a subaltern. We need to juxtapose this with counter arguments, and this, according to me, makes it very open, in the sense that it is a continuous process that is dynamic and evolving. And it is in terms of access to social mobility that she says, all those who are engaged in this, in research, says subalternism exists. And subaltern means, she says, I quote Gayatri Spivak, subaltern means one who has always gone through oppression, exploitation. Subaltern cannot speak. The subaltern has no history and cannot speak. The subaltern is even more deprived in shadow. So it can also, subaltern and subalternity can also be understood with the analogy of, maybe you will understand it better, class and poverty. You know, poverty is the worst pollutant. And that is what Indira Gandhi said, you know, in one of those UN meetings. She said, maybe there was the influence of Husker. She said, the world was shocked when she said, poverty is the worst pollutant. It is not anything else, but poverty is the worst pollutant. And that is very true in our times as well. And then comes gender and sex, race and color. So because of the lack of time, I'm not going deeper into that. It is in, and we, of course, we can say that, you know, this is in binary. You have to place all those theories about nationhood, and this is exactly binary, or I should say, it is in binary opposition to nationhood and any other forms of not but re-territorialization that becomes part of the capitalist agenda. So there was Marxism that was influencing it on one, you know, the story takes, and how, as especially in the life of Gango, you know, it actually, she is, Ganger is gang raped by the police people. They brutally attack her, and the whole the community in Purulia, she's abandoned, and then she has to become a prostitute. So much later, Upin's wife tells him, please don't go back to the village, but he goes back, and he is somehow, there was this guilt feeling in him that he had, and so he goes back in searching for Gango, and he finds her at night. She has become a prostitute, and he requests him to take one more photograph. And when he's all set to take a photograph he doesn't, the sight, you know, the sight of a breast, the mutilated breast, actually terrifies him, and he, you know, he gets a panic attack and he runs away from the place. And while running, while he's on his escape route, perhaps he actually succumbs to, he's hit by a train, and it was because he dies, this becomes, this news gains national recognition. And then the group of tribal women, as you have seen towards the end, they protest, they take, they cast off their blouses as a protest against a rape. So, and this is what I would like you to, as a takeaway. So what I feel is, you know, these stories, like literature, especially Mahashweta Devi's stories of subaltern, will live forever as long as there is oppression in this world. And the poorest of poor need a voice. Her spirit is still with us. And as I told you, that she may not be around to see a free India, but I think her spirit will always be there fighting for justice. So another, and this had a regional impact as well. So what I'm saying is, then there was this movie which I wanted to tell you, which I wanted to discuss with you, is Manhole, which is directed, produced by Vidhu Vincent, who is a part of Women in Collective Cinema. So last April, we had a conference of Women in Cinema Collective. You know the background of how that was formed. Again, this was formed as a protest to fight for the rights of women in cinema. So I have Vidhu is a fiery journalist, I should tell you. She had encountered so many difficulties in producing. I think I don't know whether the subtitles are available. It was it won many awards at IFFK, and I think Vidhu grew up right in that community. She had watched men, that is about the scavengers. There is a lot of literature about scavengers, but she said she has watched these men go down the manhole and risk their lives to clean somebody else's refuse. So she had heard stories, and their wives used to come and clean our houses. And just imagine, look into our own household. What is, I mean, just think, reflect on the space that we provide for those people who do these jobs for us. Just pause. And so therein lies the significance of Subaltern. So she says, and when this film was she had created a documentary, a small documentary, but she felt that that was not enough. So she said she had a local auto driver do the main role. So the story is again all about a man, a person who is a scavenger, and he dreams that his daughter would become a magistrate, but he loses his life. And then the daughter, and daughter is in love with someone. She loses him as well, his life in the manhole. So she emerges as an activist, and it is a fight that is the essence of the cinema. So what I'm saying is, and Vidhu has maybe in one of those interactions that we had in Women in Collective Cinema, she said the dialect was also very important. She did not want the elite kind of language. Her script, the consultant for the script was Sundar Rajan, who was from the Toti colony, and he was, because their dialect is different, and they come from the Chakkaliyar community, Tamilians who had migrated, I think around 1920s, when we had the dry toilets. So they still do, and they belong to the Arintadiyar community. So there is one Chakkaliyar community, and again there is the larger frame of the Arintadiyar community. So these are the, I think there are plenty of movies, but I just want to, and you should understand, in Kerala alone, there are 6 lakhs of scavengers, and they do not, when they die, they die. There is no representation at all. There is no one to take their cause. But now the things are slowly changing. And these are the areas that, that become very relevant in subaltern studies. And then coming back to literature, I would, that time is also, I don't want to exceed time. So there is this book, which made it very relevant for the southern part of India, No Alphabet in Sign, and New Dalit writing from South India. And this is edited by Susi Tharu. And I still remember, when we were there as researchers in IFLU, how she took time to help us with our research. At that point, she was very busy publishing her book, Women Writing, in 2 volumes in India, 1500 BC to the present. So this also is one, I mean, if you are interested in subaltern studies, you should catch hold of this book. It is a voluminous work. And this particular No Alphabet in Sight is taken from our own, that is Kerala's own poet, who has said, I see no alphabet about my race, I see histories. So it is from that they have titled they have kept the title for the book. So what I'm saying is, even in this book, you know, they have tried to give give emphasis to the range of, there is poetry, fiction, social analysis, cultural critique, political speech. It is 640 pages, if I remember, because one of my scholars also was doing on Malayalam literature. She's there for the conference, Soumya, who is very much here listening to me now. She wanted to come in. So we had struggled with this, you know, how to make this distinction between Dalit writing and again Adivasi writing. So, and those elites who write about Dalit, can we include that as a part of Dalit writing? This was the predominant question that was raised during that point of research, and we got an answer. It can't be, because when we looked at Totide Magan by Tagari, you know, this, I think that was also very popular. Can we consider this? There is a heated argument about that. And in that, we can also bring in Perumal Murugan, one of my favorites, of course. And especially Ponnachi. I do not know how much I cried, you know, like it was so haunting. I think that book haunted me for, I do not know. It is all about, I wouldn't say that it is all about the female space, but the helplessness, sheer helplessness. And Murugan, Perumal Murugan had said, you cannot write about cows or Hindus or Muslims or Christians in India, but you can write about goats, because goats and humans, he could find some relationship. And he said, ultimately, the humans and goats, you know, are unable to communicate and are positioned differently along a fixed hierarchy. And therein lies the source of much of Ponnachi's suffering. Ponnachi means the black sheep, you know, and there also, one thing that I wanted to highlight is he has, it's a beautiful translation in English, and he has said, once in a village, there was a goat. No one knows where she was born. The birth of an ordinary life never leaves a trace, does it? So this is one of the poignant questions that we carry with us. And the reader catches glimpses of such hierarchies that are an integral part of human society, and also catches glimpse of, you know, in one extended sequel in the novel, the author describes mandatory procedure for the citizens and their pets to get their ears pierced, and slyly slips a comment on the surveillance state. So there are other works, that is Spectral Speech by C. Ayyappan, that is translated into English by my own Sir Harris, Dr. Harris, and Uday Kumar has also translated it, but C. Ayyappan and Harris, before he, I think before Sir died, he translated, and that he gave a new title, that is Spectral Speech, specters of resistance, specters of oppression, and that is what Preda Bhashanam, that is how
Vadiva? Hello, Vadiva? Hello? Vadiva?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
It's not audible, Vadiva, now.
Ma'am, we have lost connectivity with madam, ma'am.
You have to inform. Shall I inform her?
Ma'am is online, ma'am.
Yeah, should I stop?
Yes, ma'am. It stopped for a second.
Yeah. Shall we conclude?
HOD ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, it's audible.
Okay. Can I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Are you bored?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you
Yes, ma'am.
bored?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. It's interesting.
So now I pose to you, I ask you one question. What happens to autonomy? What happens to our autonomy in a democratic space? So now we are in the midst of a pandemic. What happened to us in the wake of this COVID pandemic? And I would say that our spaces are put under surveillance and our autonomy has been taken away. And the word survival has also been subordinated to the will of the state. And your survival is also no longer a part of your autonomy. Very covertly, the state takes decision forcing you to occupy subaltern position. So that is what we have witnessed all over the world. And citizens were pushed to the subject position and they became mere bodies with no access to freedom, no access, with no choice whether to survive or not. So subalternity cannot be established because it is difficult to explain, and there is no such thing as voiceless. There are only the deliberately silenced or perfectly unheard. And when you look at the migrant situation in India, you know, there is so many, the channels are just showing the migrant situations in India. There are so many channel discussions. What is going to happen now? What is the outcome? Are they going to get any benefit? That is a bigger question. And I quote Mahashweta Devi's words, my India still lives in a curtain of darkness, a curtain of darkness that separates mainstream of society like us from the poor and the deprived. Now you have 140 millions of subalterns, you know, they are the new subalterns, the migrant workers, and there is no ministry for the migrant workers, if I'm correct, you know, and they are exposed to deterritorialization. They are completely controlled by others. And look at the power, what is done to them by the power hierarchies. So and I should tell you, women are also a caste. Women are also considered as a caste. Class, or it is specifically said, we are also considered as a caste. So now I'm telling you, I'm leaving it and look into our own spaces of professional spaces. What is the position that we occupy? Aren't we also under surveillance? Aren't we also controlled by the dominant? These are the questions for the teachers as well. And who is controlling us? Capitalism. Even if we are unhappy with our work, we are forced to go for work. So this is the kind of power struggles that take place within the system. And now I am going to conclude with one last point, that is something that I'm passionate about: science fiction. You know, when you discuss subaltern studies, you cannot just ignore the science fiction movies and science fiction, because science fiction is a literature of change. And I have shared a video with you. Because of the lack of time, Sujata, will you show it towards the end, or would you share it with them later?
Which one do you want to play, ma'am?
The last one after my talk. The last
Yes,
one.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Let me introduce them to the movie. And this movie, which you are going to, the trailer perhaps you are going to see, is about this movie, which was a science fiction movie, which was released in 2013 by and directed by a South Korean director, Bong Joon-ho. Okay, and this is declared as one of the best action movies. I stumbled upon it accidentally, and I should tell you, the social structure you can see, and the social structure. This is all about. Actually, it was my young colleague who forced me to see this movie. So there is a train, you know, like the world has ended, and the Snowpiercer is a train on which we are, you know, they all board, like the Noah's Ark. they are on the train and it is 18 years since they are traveling continuously non-stop. The engine will not stop and it is compartmentalized. The elites are at the first compartment, and then there is the each compartment, each bogie has got its own compartment, and it is tight. No one can cross into the other car. So this is exactly, so the social structure that you see inside the train is meant to mirror our own social situation, and the wealthy elite and the tail end, the people who inhabit the tail end, is called the tailies. They will never come to the front. So this is more importantly, and they are trapped on the train. There is no other life. That is what they are made to believe. And children are made to believe that there is no life for them, because this is earth. This is earth for them. And the name of the train is earth. Everything, ecosystem, everything exists on the train. If you have time, you should watch this movie and you can see the hierarchy. And I want to emphasize the idea of the train, the physical train, as an iron box or metallic prison. The director himself explains it is the engine, like the engine is always, it will never stop, and it is automated, or it is powered by child labor. The name of the movie is Snowpiercer, and you can watch. So this is, and it is, if the life ends, and I'm not going to give you how the movie ends, but you will be able to see how the Althusser also, you can connect Althusser, that is the power relation, that is how ideological state apparatus controls social the institution. So here is a movie for you, and take this discussion forward. I think, Sujata, can we conclude?
Yes, ma'am. Shall I play the movie, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, okay. Vadive?
Yes, ma'am.
Mute ஆயிடுச்சு வடிவு. Madam,
I think we can share that link with them, you know.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll do it, ma'am.
Yes, the title of the movie is Snowpiercer. It is available in Netflix and YouTube as well. So you can just see that movie. Maybe the trailer as well. That would, So can we say bye?
Geeta, ma'am.
Thank you so much for patient listening.
Yes, Vadive.
Any questions?
Thank you so much, ma'am, for an enlightening and insightful presentation. Yes, ma'am.
Geeta, any questions? Questions from chat box? Any interaction?
No, ma'am, there is no questions in the chat box, ma'am.
Just ask Vadive, is there any questions?
If there are any questions, you can mail it to me so that I can send an answer to them.
Ma'am, there is a question from one of the participants, ma'am.
Yeah.
Can we consider Mahashweta Devi's work as Dalit or subaltern?
That is the purpose for which that I introduce, because she wrote, this is the heating debate. I think that is why I brought in Perimal Murugan and Tagari's work, because they all belong to the elite class. And in this, particularly the preface that is written in no alphabet in sight, there is a debate, because one who is a subaltern and then one who is writing about it, only that could be considered only that as a subaltern. There are people who has written about the subaltern. Can we consider that also as a subaltern? So there is a heated debate, but I think in Kerala, I mean, most of them feel that cannot be considered as a subaltern, in the sense the writings by the subaltern alone can be, that alone falls into this category of the subaltern. I myself do not have an answer, because this is again much debated. But I can say that Mahashweta Devi was an exception because she lived with them. She devoted her entire life. Though she was at Perimal Murugan, likewise, he was born into elite, I hope, family or an elite class. Similarly, but Mahashweta Devi dedicated her entire life for the tribals. She lived with the tribals. So it's very difficult to answer, actually. Very complex. Especially after the publication of that book, No Alphabets in Sight. I think Soumya, my scholar, we had so much of confusion in this particular area when she was about to submit, about, the same situation, whom should be, anything that is written. But we did not include, honestly, we did not include any of those elite people who has written about the subaltern. We did not include that in our research. It was, the focus was entirely on the subalterns. Whatever they had written, we had taken only that.
Okay, ma'am. The other question, can we relate eco-criticism and subaltern studies?
Very much. I mean, that was what I was saying. It is a part of nature, and that is why I brought in that sci-fi, this thing. That is, it's all about nature. How can subaltern remain outside the premise of eco-criticism? Exploitation, violence that we are subjected to, and that becomes very much a part of nature, woman and nature, or maybe like so. That actually is, you cannot disengage subaltern studies from eco-criticism.
Okay, ma'am. One of the participants has posted the question, What happened to the disciplinary history in the aftermath of subaltern studies?
Pardon?
What happened to the disciplinary history in the aftermath of subaltern studies?
Good question. Now, disciplinary history, maybe she's, I hope you may mean history as a grand narrative, isn't it? So that even in postmodernism, that the pedestal position that was given to history was taken away. History was, because history was looked upon as the history of the elite, constructed truths. It was not truth. Even truth became very so little. That is why I highlighted that point in the beginning of my talk. That is, the shift was very much, they started constructing history from little narratives like memoirs, letters, all those things. And that became more, they had more truth in them. So there was, and fiction and history, the thin line that was dividing fiction and history, that became shaky. So this is what Linda Hutchins says in the Poetics of Postmodernism. History is nothing but created or constructed. Truth is also nothing but constructed. So that is why we say that we are so uncertain about our certainties.
Okay, ma'am. What are all major themes are considered as subaltern?
Pardon?
What are all major themes are considered as subaltern?
I mean, themes, subaltern themes, usually, that was what I was putting forward. That is, the themes are usually about not being represented, and then denying access to social mobility. It is about the subject position that you are forced into, and the sheer helplessness of not having a choice.
Ma'am, here is another question. Is there any difference between Dalit and subaltern literature?
Dalit becomes a part of subaltern. Dalit studies is a term. What do you mean by Dalit? One who is oppressed, one who is denied his essence. So I think that is a part. It is a part of subaltern studies. And Dalit is definitely a subaltern. How can you say that Dalit is not a subaltern?
Ma'am, one of the participants has posted the question, suggest some subaltern books for science fiction.
That I will do. There are plenty. There is that. I think I will mail it to you, Sujata.
Yes,
there are so many, because these science fiction writers were very prophetic. I will just check and I would mail it to you, because they speak about the structured, the hierarchies. So that is one of the dominant themes that you see in science fiction. So I would mail it to her. Yes. And there is an edited version of, I don't know whether that book is available, but I should tell you that my friend James Gunn, this is the book. I mean, there are stories from India too, like The Road to Science Fiction. It is a 3 or 4, 5 volume book. I think I would get back to you. And there was the second Einstein. There are so many stories. And there are many emerging science fiction writers in India as well. So I would send a list of books, definitely.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, Dr. Maithili has posted a question. Could you list a few fiction that touched you as a best expressed in subaltern voices?
Pardon?
Could you list a few fiction that touched you as the best expressed in subaltern voices?
You know, like this is again another challenge because subaltern studies have become very popular. As you, when you look at the, you know, I mean, each language has got, or each state has got its own subaltern writings, you know. And the best book that I would recommend is No Alphabet in Sight. And there you would get introduced to the, you know, writers who are writing about, you know, who are listed as subaltern writers. There is a new in Kerala, especially when I think I was not aware of the Dalit writings that were happening in Kerala. Very recently, there was an Sahitya Academy journal, Indian Sahitya Academy journal has published a volume of poetry. I mean, most of them were translation. And I think translation studies will never lose its relevance. Somebody has posted the questions, whether that is a dry, never. Translation is what which makes that possible. So there is an anthology of poems that were published by Indian Sahitya Academy journal. And there was, you know, there were, I mean, it had poets from all over India from different, you know, and they were, I have never, I mean, I was shocked to see the new poets speaking with, you know, writing. Their language was so, it creates a searing emotional arc, I should tell you. So that is also, I think she can read this No Alphabet insight, and then I think she would be able to get a better idea about the writers in India. There are many books which give you insight into, but I will pick a few and send it to her.
Geeta,
Just forward
Fine,
them.
ma'am.
Geeta,
Yes,
yes,
ma'am.
Geeta, we can post remaining questions in the ma'am's mail so that
Okay.
we can conclude the thing.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Next, I request Professor K. Satyapriya to thank everyone for bringing out this webinar a reality. Satya, ma'am, are you online?
Yeah, ma'am. Good afternoon, everybody. The smallest act of kindness is worth more than the grandest intention by Oscar Wilde. It is indeed a proud privilege to acknowledge the souls responsible for the success of the today's webinar. We acknowledge with due reverence the encouragement and support by our Honorable Secretary for this academic pursuit to ascend the ladder of academic excellence. Thank you, Madam. I profusely thank our revered Madam Principal for her unstinted support and being the stimulating force behind our academic ventures. Thank you, ma'am. We extend our myriads of thanks to the resource person, Dr. R. Lata Nair, Associate Professor of English, St. Teresa's College, Kochi, Kerala, for her scintillating, invigorating, insightful, and intellectual deliberations on subaltern literature. Ma'am, a real teacher does not live in his body, he lives in his thoughts and books. Madam, a great applause for your ardent effort in disseminating your knowledge in a simple and lucid way. Thank you, Madam. Profound thanks and gratitude to all the participants for their overwhelming responses from various corners of the nation. Thank you, participants. Teamwork divides the task and multiples the success. I acknowledge the work rendered by the Department of English in organizing this national webinar successfully. We express our deep sense of gratitude to all who are working behind the screen to make this online forum a successful one. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujata. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
for
Thank you, ma'am.
organizing such a wonderful session. I hope
Yes,
and
ma'am.
pray that I was able to share some of my thoughts.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't have an idea what you were expecting, but anyway, you know, and please
Yes,
post those questions to me so that I can answer it properly, you know, help them
Yes,
out.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and to spend your valuable time with us. Thank you so much, ma'am. On behalf of the college and on behalf of the department, on my own behalf, I extend a very my gratitude to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Yes,
hope
ma'am.
I didn't disappoint you.
No, ma'am. It's a wonderful, informative, highly informative session, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Vadivel? Vadivel, Kirsi?
Yes.
Vadivel?
Yes, ma'am.
Close பண்ணிடலாமா?
Yes, ma'am.
லிங்க் அனுப்பிட்டீங்களா? ஃபீட்பேக் லிங்க்?
Yes, ma'am.
ஃபீட்பேக் லிங்க் அனுப்பியாச்சா?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's all over.